عن أبي هريرة قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم آية المنافق ثلاث زاد مسلم وإن صام وصلى وزعم أنه مسلم. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh reports that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the signs of a hypocrite are three. Imam Muslim's narration added the words, even if he prays, fasts, and claims he's a Muslim. And then both of them, Bukhari and Muslim, continue with the wordings being, the three being, إِذَا حَدَّثَ كَذَبْ, when he lies, when he speaks, he lies. وَإِذَا وَعَدَ أَخْلَفْ, and when he makes a promise or an agreement, he goes against his word. وَإِذَا تُمِنَ خَانْ, and when he's given a trust, he betrays that trust. Okay. To understand this hadith, when we will go back to what I said to you during the beginning of the course, that hypocrisy is of two types: major hypocrisy and minor. Minor hypocrisy is still one of the great major sins. Minor hypocrisy is nifaq al-amali, hypocrisy through your actions. You're still a Muslim, but hypocrisy through your actions. And these are the signs of a minor hypocrite. They may also be found in the major hypocrite. These signs indicate that someone may be a hypocrite. And they will be found in those with major hypocrisy as well as minor hypocrisy. The difference is those that have minor hypocrisy are still Muslims because they truly believe in Islam. Those that have major hypocrisy, they are not Muslims because they really don't believe in their heart. Even if they, as the hadith mentions, they claim openly that they are Muslim and you see them fasting. And the hadith in many ways can apply to both. So someone will be considered having minor hypocrisy even if he prays or fasts, if he does these things. He's still a Muslim, but he's doing one of the major sins of being a hypocrite in his behavior. And the hadith mentions a few things. Number one is a person, when he speaks, he lies, i.e. becomes known for lying in his words and his speech. He's not truthful. The commonality you'll find in all three of them, before we go further, is that all of them are just like hypocrisy is actually claiming one thing and being the opposite. They are type of being double-faced. All these three of them are the same thing as hypocrisy, claiming one thing in the open and privately doing something else. They're all forms of hypocrisy. When someone speaks, he says he lies. That's the first sign of hypocrisy. Even though obviously he's going to claim he's telling the truth. So what he claims is completely contradictory to the reality. And hence he's doing what hypocrites do, which is that he claims to be a Muslim, major hypocrites, but really he's not. Same. The sign of a hypocrite, both major and minor, is that when he speaks, he lies. Because that's the nature of hypocrites, to contradict reality. The second sign is that when they make a promise with you, they go against it. The first one, when he speaks his lies, is a sign of the words contradicting reality. The second one is a sign of the actions contradicting reality. When he makes a promise, so the second one is an example of, let me just check here how the scholars of Hadith explain it. So Imam Ghazali mentions, that when he speaks he lies is a sign of him being a hypocrite through his words. The second one, when he promises, he goes against his promise, is a sign of hypocrisy in the heart. Because when you make a promise and you intend to go against it, that's a betrayal already in the heart. And the third sign of hypocrite is when they trusted, they betray their trust. Whatever trust they're given. This is a trust with Allah, that's to fulfill the obligation, and then privately they don't. It's a trust with the people when they're trusted with some wealth, or they'll misuse it. Or you give them something, they will claim they've lost it and still use it in private. This third one is a hypocrisy in action. That they are in action, they're meant to be trusted, but really in action they are committing treachery. In simple, as Allama al-Ghazali mentions, this hadith is showing how hypocrites will show their colors, either in their words, by doing what hypocrites do, which is claiming one thing, that they're speaking the truth, but really they're lying, or in their actions, by doing what hypocrites do, that they, whenever they're trusted, they'll betray one way or another, or in their intentions, by making promises that they intend to go against. Okay. And hence these three are not the only signs of hypocrites. Rather, these are examples of the hypocrisy and their different forms in words, actions, and intentions. Next hadith. And Abdullah bin Amr قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أربع من كنا فيه كان منافقا خالصا. 4 attributes, whoever has them is a complete hypocrite. Meaning that if he has all 4, he is a complete hypocrite. He's a munafiq. That could be minor hypocrisy. He has complete minor hypocrisy if he has faith and he actually does believe in Islam. Or he could be a complete major hypocrite if he doesn't have faith at all. But when he has these attributes, if he has all 4 of them, he's a complete munafiq, major or minor. وَمَنْ كَانَ فِي خَصْلَةٍ مِنْهُنَّ كَانَ فِي خَصْلَةٍ مِنَ النِّفَاقِ حَتَّى يَدَعَهَا. And if he has one of these attributes, then he has an attribute of hypocrisy until he leaves it. When he's trusted, he betrays. When he speaks, he lies. And when he promises, he betrays, which we've already covered. وَإِذَا خَاصَمَ فَجَرَ. And when he argues and debates, he becomes vulgar in words and actions. Again, this is an example of how he lets emotions get the better of him and covers, through his emotions, he covers the truth that he knows. So this is a 4 type. The first 3 were words, actions, and intentions. The 4th is the emotions overpower their actual, what they truly believe to be correct in arguments. So they will lie and swear. So they know they're in the wrong, but they will guilt trip you. They will push the blame back on you. They will say vulgar things to put you down, to make themselves feel right. وَإِذَا خَاصَمَ فَجَرَ. When he debates or argues, fajr. He becomes vulgar in words and action. And hence the Prophet ﷺ explained the signs of hypocrites. We can identify them. And for us to stay away from them, and when we see them amongst the people, that try to advise them accordingly. And to stay away from their treachery and not to trust these people. Next hadith. Ibn Umar قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Now, before I go further, this is all Fasl al-Awwal. Fasl al-Awwal means the hadith in Sahih Bukhari, Muslim, or both. And hence, we're not going to talk about the authenticity. They're automatically authentic, generally speaking, Sahih Bukhari and Muslim. مثل المنافق كالشاة العائرة بين الغنمين تعير إلى هذه مرة وإلى هذه مرة. Ibn Umar mentions that the Prophet ﷺ said, the example of a hypocrite is like a sheep that hesitates between 2 flocks. Sometimes following one flock, sometimes following the other flock. In other words, the hypocrites Sometimes they're with you, sometimes they're against you, depending upon where they believe that the victory will end up, where they believe they may get more of the dunya, where they believe that they may get higher status, where they believe that their interest lies. They keep changing their colors and what they say and what they claim and what their values are. Now, the harms of this are many. In summary, these hypocrites, as the Quran tells us, do not just have the worst place in hell, they also have the worst place in dunya. Why? Because they have so many problems that they're too long to even list. I'll go through some of them. Number one, they have sirat dakhili. They have internal conflict. Because as hypocrites, they're trying to reconcile between two contradictory beliefs, morals, values, and that results in them being uneasy and anxious. Number two, they have an identity crisis. They can't truly identify themselves with any of the two beliefs or values, and hence they truly don't know what their identity or their values are, and they lose self-confidence. Number three, they have how would you say al-azla al-ijtimai in English? Social exclusion. Because they can't really identify with any particular group, they feel an outsider, they feel alone. Fourth, it becomes hard for them to make any decisions because they don't really pick a side and don't really choose what's right and wrong. So hence, they can't really develop their personality or their values or spiritually or in their character. Fifth, they constantly are scared of being judged because there's none of the two sides accept them as a whole. And nor can they truly express their opinion, so they're bottled inside the heart and mind, and that leads to frustration. Six, they are emotionally exhausted because they're constantly trying to see everyone's point of view, justify this, justify that. That leads to mental exhaustion and tiredness, fatigue, mental and physical. Seventh, they have a moral war as well. Because again, they can't separate between values that are meaningful and values that are meaningless. They don't have clear foundations to build anything upon. And the final one I mentioned here is they lack a purpose in life. They've got no goal. Because they got nothing to work towards, because they don't know what they should work towards and what it should be a valid goal or not. So the hypocrites are the worst ones in this dunya and also in the hereafter. Now this is the reality of the world we live in. But openly, if you see them, they look the happiest. Why? Because anyone who's trying to prove a point goes out of their way to do so. So because they don't identify, they need to go out of the way to show they're part of the group. So they'll smile more, they'll want to fit in more, they'll do things. Just like you notice that some of the people that are the most depressed are the most giggly in society when they're happy together. In front of everyone, they're smiling, but privately they're crying at times. It's just an imbalance. Okay, let's continue. Next hadith. فصل الثاني عن صفوان بن عسال قال يهودي لصاحبي اذهب بنا إلى هذا النبي فقال له صم لا تقل نبيا إنه لو سمعك لكان أربعة أعين. Safwan bin Asal radiallahu mentions that one of the Yahud said to his companion, let's go to this prophet and ask him a few things, or ask him something. So his companion said to him, don't say he's the prophet, because if he hears you, he'll have 4 eyes. What does that mean? It's an expression, as Allama Torbushti and others mention. When you hear something that delights you, you don't just have an emotional reaction, you have a physical reaction. Your eyes get wider, your head might tilt forward, you may focus, and You may look at what delights you, and that results in as though you make your eyes bigger, or you look carefully so you see better, so it's as though your two eyes have become four. Just like the opposite is true when you're sad, you're depressed, you look down instead of looking upwards, you close your body closer, get closer, you're not as expressive, and hence that's what's meant. فأتيا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فسألوا 9 آيات بينات. So they came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they asked about the 9 clear-cut signs. What were the 9 clear-cut signs and evidences given to Musa alayhi salatu salam? So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, they are that do not associate anyone with Allah, do not steal, do not do zina, do not kill the soul, the innocent person which Allah has made haram for you, except through a justified cause. وَلَا تَمْشُوا بِبَرِيءٍ إِلَى ذِي سُلْطَانٍ لِيَقْتُولَهُ. Don't take an innocent person to the judge so you can be killed innocently, so you can get something on him, for example. Don't take an innocent person to the court just to get something on him. Do not do magic. وَلَا تَأْكُلْ رِبَا. Do not do riba. وَلَا تَقْذِفُ مُحْسَنًا. And do not make false accusations against a chaste woman. وَلَا تُوَلُّوا لِلْفِرَارِ يَوْمَ الزَّحْفِ. And don't turn away from the battlefield on the day of battle. وَعَلَيْكُمْ خَاصَّةً يَهُودًا. And for you particularly, O Jews, لَا تَعْدُوا فِي السَّبْتِ. Do not transgress in the Sabbath. Okay. There's a lot to unpack in this hadith. Let's count them. Shirk, 1. Do not steal, 2. Do not do zina, 3. Do not kill a person, 4. Do not take an innocent person to be convicted unjustly in court, 5. Do not do magic, 6. Do not do riba, 7. Do not accuse an innocent woman, 8. Do not run from the battlefield, 9. And for the Jews, particularly for you, do not transgress in the Sabbath, 10. Okay. The scholars mention there's a couple of issues with this hadith. Number 1 is there's a separation between the 9 miracles he was given and the 10 commandments. This mentions 9 commandments plus the 10, particularly for the Jews, and that's 10 commandments. But the question was about the 9 signs. Either the 9 signs refers to clear-cut laws, and hence the answer was according to that, and that 10 was particularly for the Jews, or that the 9 refers to the 9 clear-cut signs Musa was given, and those 9 signs have been deleted from this hadith, and then he was asked about the 10 commandments, and the 10 commandments are given. Then what would be the next 9 signs which were deleted? Those are mentioned in the Quran. They are we'll cover them in tafsir, but the staff turning into a snake, the white lighting hand, the flood, the locusts, the lice, the frogs, the blood, the years of famine, and the years of decreasement of fruits as well. Okay? Now, if the hadith refers to 9 clear-cut signs he was given, then those are the signs, but they're not mentioned in the hadith, and there was a second question they asked, and that's mentioned. Or if it refers to 9 laws plus the 10th commandment with them worship, with 10th being particular for the Jews, then what was asked was mentioned as was answered in the hadith. Okay. Now, why did this confusion come about? I'll explain to you in a bit. But let's continue with the hadith. قال فقبل يديه ورجليه. So the these two Jews, they kissed the hands of the Prophet ﷺ and his feet. What the Prophet ﷺ answered was correct according to what they wanted. وَقَالَ نَشْهَدْ أَنَّكَ نَبِيٌّ. And they said, we testify you're a prophet. You've answered correctly, so you're a prophet. قَالَ فَمَا يَمْنَعُكُمْ أَن تَتَّبِعُونِي. So then the Prophet ﷺ asked them, then what stops you from following me if you accept I'm a prophet? قال, they said, إِنَّا دَاوُودَ عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ دَعَا رَبُّهُ أَلَّا يَزَالَ مِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِهِ نَبِيٌّ وَإِنَّا نَخَافُ أَن نَتَّبِعَكَ أَن يَقْتُلَنَا الْيَهُودُ. They replied by giving two excuses. Number one is that Dawood alayhi salam did a dua to Allah that there would be a prophet from his progeny, and we're waiting for that prophet. That's the first claim, while they're not accepting. And that claim is wrong because from his progeny, he has Sulaiman Islam straight away anyway. That's the limit of any of the prophets. And number two, Dawood Islam didn't ask for prophets only to be from his own nation. He would never do that. That's not his. That's not a dua that one would make, let alone a prophet. So they're wrong on that ground. Number three, they're wrong because Dawood Islam, like any of the prophet, was told about the coming of the final prophet Muhammad, and they were told if a prophet comes, as we learn in the Quran, you must follow him, and hence Dawood Islam agreed to that. So that claim is a lie. Then the second claim that we're afraid if we follow you, the Yahud Jews will kill us. That's a false accusation as well. Why? Because there were Jews that accepted Islam, such as Abdullah bin Salam and others. They were harmed. So the accusations are just complete. Their excuses are just lies. The next thing is, here it mentions the hadith in Tirmidhi, Abu Dawud, and Nasa'i. It's in Tirmidhi and Nasa'i. It's not really in Abu Dawud. I'm not sure why it's mentioned here. Many of the commentators of hadith also said it's not in Abu Dawud as well. The next thing is this hadith authentic or not? Ibn Kathir mentions it's a problematic hadith. The reason being is because one of the narrators, Abdullah bin Salima, he had a bad memory. He didn't have as good of a memory. He wasn't a terrible memory, but his memory wasn't strong. And Ibn Kathir mentions that's why there's a confusion in this hadith. If the two Jews asked about the 9 signs, then the 9 signs would have been given an answer. But the answer was that what's the 10 commandments? And it's likely that this narrator, Abdullah bin Salima, made the mistake. Most likely, probably is he was asked about the 10 commandments, and then they were given, or he was asked about the 9 miracles, then the 10 commandments, and the 9 miracles were deleted. Memory issues. Nasa'i says this hadith is munkar. This hadith is to be rejected. Ibn Qayyim says that even the words of the hadith don't add up, simply because he was asked about one thing according to this narration and the answer was different. But again, as Ibn Kathir explained, that is simply because of the memory of the narrator. There were some scholars, however, that counted it authentic, such as Tirmidhi, but Tirmidhi was slightly lenient. Imam Hakim said it's Sahih, but Imam Hakim was extremely lenient. Zubair al-Zai said he indicates the Hasan hadith. Sheikh Al-Bani said it's weak. Zubair al-Zai, Sheikh Shu'aib al-Nawood said it's weak. Allah knows best, the hadith is disputed. Leave it at that. But what we will say is, the reality is there's different versions of this hadith also, and different answers given. And even amongst the Yahud, one of the 10 commandments is different between Jews and Christians, and amongst different groups of Jews. And so the 10 answer given here will be different than what you find in some versions of the Bible even. But most of them pretty much match up. In summary, what we can take from this hadith is the Prophet ﷺ must have been questioned about something, and he gave the correct answer. The narrator most likely got mixed up the 9 signs with the 10 commandments, or vice versa. But whatever the question was, the answer was given correctly, because that's why they kissed the Prophet's hands and feet and testified he was a prophet. But obviously, it's not surprising to know that these people and others They know the truth, but they don't want to follow it because they're entrenched in their own ways. Okay, let's continue. Just a bit longer, inshallah, then we'll stop. عن أنس قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ثلاث من أصل الإيمان الكف عمن قال لا إله إلا الله لا تكفروا بذنب ولا تخرجوا من الإسلام بعمل والجهاد ماد منذ بعثني الله إلى أن يقاتل آخر الأمة الدجال لا يبتل جور جائر ولا عدل عادل والإيمان بالأقدار. Anas radiallahu anhu reports the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said three things are part of the root of faith, the basis of faith. Three things are the foundation of faith. To refrain from the one who says La ilaha illallah, by la tukafir with dhanbin, by not calling him a kafir because he does a sin, wala tukrihun Islam, and not taking him out of Islam because he does a sin. That's the first thing. You don't call someone a non-Muslim simply because he does a sin. Number two, wal jihadu madin mundun ba'athinullah ila an yuqatil akhir al-ummah ad-dajjal. The second is that fighting in the path of Allah will continue from the time Allah sent me as a prophet until the time of Dajjal. La yubtilu jawru jair. The oppression of the tyrant will not make it invalid. Wala adlu adil. Nor will the justice of a just ruler make it disappear. In other words, no matter how bad your ruler is, it doesn't mean you no longer have to fight in the path of Allah when there's a cause for it. You're still going to have to. Even if the ruler's bad, fight under his banner, unite together, work together to fight against the common enemy. And even if the ruler is just, it doesn't mean there'll be safety everywhere. There will always be a calamity here and there where the Ummah needs support. Until the last of my Ummah fight the Dajjal. Wal iman bil aqdar, and having iman in destiny. This is also the third foundation. Why are these three singled out here? Put simply, this hadith is like building point 1, 2, and 3 together. First part of the hadith is telling us, be united. Don't let your differences divide you. As long as you know kufr and shirk, you're one ummah. Simple as that. First. Number two, once you're united, fight against a common enemy that wishes to harm you. No matter how just or tyrant the ruler is, don't make excuses. Stick together against common enemies, so you have a wall against anyone that wishes to harm you. Number three, even if you do this, there bad things will happen in the dunya. And don't blame that on Islam. Don't blame that upon Iman. Don't blame that on here and there. The reality is, accept destiny. That's part of the test Allah is giving this dunya. That's what the hadith is saying. These three will help you guide through life. Now, Imam Abu Dawud reported this hadith, and the chain is weak. The chain is weak. It has Yazid ibn Abi Nushba, and he's an unknown narrator. He's majhul. And a narration from an unknown narrator is automatically weak, because every narrator has to be verified as authentic to be accepted. He's not verified. We're not sure if he's reliable or not, so the default is we don't accept. Zubair al-Izai said this week, Sheikh Shuaib bin Dawood said this week, Sheikh Albani said this week, and many of the scholars classified the hadith as weak. Next hadith is very similar. Qala qala Rasulullah sallam. We did this before, so I'm not going to explain again. إذا زنى العبد خرج منه الإيمان وكان فوق رأسك الذل فإذا خرج من ذلك الأمر رجع إليه الإيمان. That it's attributed here to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that that when a person does a sin, Iman leaves him, and it's above his head like a canopy or awning. It's like a cover that comes out. It's like a cloud or a canopy above his head when you do sin. And when the person leaves that sin, then Iman returns to him. This hadith is attributing to the Prophet ﷺ what was attributed to Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh, which is that that when you do a sin, whilst you're doing the sin, Iman leaves you, and then once you stop doing the sin, iman enters your heart. Shaykh Barnawood, Imam Sheikh Albani, Zubair Lizai, Imam Hakim, all of them said the chain is reliable.